three discoveries that I've made about what I call hidden seasons in our lives. A hidden season is a season when perhaps your life is transitioning through to a different stage, a different expression of your gift and your calling and your vocation. Perhaps that transition means that you are not operating in the same level, or you're not having the same opportunities, or you are not as high profile, or whatever. I think what I've discovered about these seasons in life, and you won't have just one, there'll be several seasons in life that are kind of seasons of reinvention and seasons where you metamorph into another version of yourself. I think in those hidden seasons, because I'm fascinated by Jesus' life that had 30 years of anonymity and obscurity in Nazareth, from the age of really a few years old. We hear nothing till he's 12 when he's in the temple, and then nothing for kind of 2 decades. And most of the gospel writers say nothing about that period of his life. So Jesus began his life in utter anonymity and obscurity. I say obscurity because anonymity is one thing. To be anonymous in a well-known area is different to being anonymous in a place nobody can find on a map, or when you mention it, people have derisive, negative remarks about that place, as was the case with Nazareth. Can any good thing kind of come out of Nazareth? I think in these hidden seasons of your life, I think it's important to remember that, number one, the unseen is not unimportant. I think we live in a very visual, 5 senses driven age, in which if you can't point to something that is a success or an achievement or a result or something you're producing, then we consider your life to really not be as significant or in as much momentum. We measure achievements by visual results, because no one can measure internal results and internal progress and internal achievement, all of which is what happens in a hidden season of your life. And so for 30 years, all we know about Jesus eventually is that in that 30 years, he grew in wisdom and stature and favor with God and with men. It sums it up that way. But he continued to grow in obscurity. So his growth is not fed by opportunity. His growth is not fed by public profile. His growth isn't fed by public ministry, because he grew for 30 years without any of that. Because when he comes on the scene of history, we see him living out of that root and that fundamental deep foundation that he discovered in that hidden season of his life. I think the second thing about hidden seasons is you learn to trust God's timing for your life. A hidden season helps us to be less restless and more comfortable and confident and peaceful in God's promotion and God's using of our life in the next season in any public way. I think being at peace in these hidden seasons, especially if you have a hidden season after you've had a high-profile season, I think it recenters you, it refocuses you on your true north, which is the third thing I'd say, because hidden seasons are about rediscovering your audience of one, not your audience of hundreds or thousands or millions, but your audience of one, God himself. It recenters you in that he is the most vital relationship in your life you will ever have. And I think in seasons of high activity and people involvement, we can often think that it's those relationships that are most defining of us. But they are not and never have been. That Jesus had 30 years alone with his Father, building that route into God, for 3 years public ministry. During those 3 years, he took a lot of time out away from the crowd to reaffirm, to continue to sink that deep root into God, because he knew that his audience ultimately was always going to be an audience of one. When he begins his public ministry, that's a voice from heaven that he's my son in whom I'm well pleased. I think that's all the endorsement Jesus ever needed. And I think that endorsement from the Father protected him, made him immune, if you like, from people's non-endorsement and resistance, which he had all of his 3 years in public ministry. So I think if you're in a hidden season, a more kind of below ground, hidden iceberg working on the 80% unseen season of your life. And you are in a season of less exposure and less notoriety and less demand. It is a great, great season. It is not a write-off. It is not marking time. It's not walking on the spot. It is a great time to renew your root into God, a great time to reinvest and understand the value of internal work in our life that's more important than anything external we will ever do. It's a great time to trust God for the timing of your life, because He knows exactly the rhythms of our life as they should be. It's resting into the beauty of the timing of that. Imagine Jesus in that anonymous time, knowing who He was, knowing what He could do, that He could raise the dead, but He saw His own Father get ill and die and didn't intervene. He knew that Mary's role was divine and chosen by God and miraculous, but He didn't step up and publicly protect her reputation and protect her from any stigma that she had as a unmarried mother, as it were, which would be terrible in that culture then. He knew all of those things, but He did not, before His time, sort of come out of that Clark Kent identity and do His Superman stuff. And I think in hidden seasons, people may look at you and think, well, you're not up to much, you're not producing much. Don't be tempted to prove them wrong. Don't be tempted to prove how gifted you are, what you're capable of. Just rest in God's timing for your life. Hope that helps you guys today.